Well, welcome to the Learn Your Ballot educational series where you get the 411 on what and who's on the ballot for the 2020 election. I'm Precious Ray, accompanied by my amazing co-host, Mr. Dave Lewis.
What's up, everybody? I'm excited about this opportunity again to help you guys become more informed voters. Before making it out to the polls, we're only a couple of weeks away, which is exciting. We know the presidential election is coming up, and that's getting a lot of the limelight. But what our goal here is to build you guys' awareness on the power of local voting. I think a lot of times, and you guys will see now, like there's big, all these conversations around the VP who doesn't have a lot of power, but you see now Kamala being, the first African-American woman to hold that position. So there's a lot of conversation about that. But we want you guys to understand how these local elections and these state level elections affect your day-to-day lives, as well as we want to inform you on who those people are, paired with just some additional research from a nonpartisan lens to help you guys make your voting process hopefully easier and you feel empowered when you go to the polls this year.
Yes, and if you haven't downloaded the app Ballotpedia, you can download that app, see all the profiles of the candidates, and save your ballot. So as we're going through different things, you can be able to star and favorite who you want to continue to research and learn more about. So we are going to go ahead and get started. The positions we're diving into today is the Texas Chief Justice Supreme Court, the Texas Supreme Court, and the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals. So now starting with the Chief Justice Supreme Court, Dave, what exactly does this position entail? What's its powers, responsibilities? Give us the rundown.
Got it. So as Precious said, we're going to start with the Texas Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. And I know to a lot of people, when you see this on the ballot, if you're not in politics, if you're not in law, if you're not a history buff, if you're not a government buff, a lot of these things, you're probably kind of at like me, like, what the heck does this do? How does this affect me? And basically, when you think about the chief, you think about someone that's in charge. Like, that's a good way to put it. So if you see a Chief Justice Supreme Court judge, that's the person that presides over that specific court. And there's also other judges within that same court, but this one actually presides over it. And basically their role is to lead judicial administrative offices within like a multiple judge court. They call for individuals not only to see administrative tasks in the court and to ensure they're carried out, but also to address the needs of the public, attorneys, court staff, and fellow judges. So you could kind of think of this person as like a CEO of the courts.
Okay. That makes sense. I was over here trying to visualize what that would look like, but I can see that. Okay, CEO operating over everybody else. Cool.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, it's an administrative role in addition to that. It's these terms, a lot of people want to know these are 6-year staggering terms. So you guys will see on some election cycles, you'll see, you may see this role on there, you may not see it. And that just means that role hasn't come up. And then there's times where you may see it on there where if the person decides to retire, and if the governor at the time decided not to elect that position, you'll see it on the ballot, just depending on the election cycle and the time. But typically the vacant positions are chosen by the governor. That's usually in their favor. There's 9 there's 9 seats in the Texas Supreme Court, and one of those seats is the chief. And Texas is one of 3 states with 2 courts of last resort. And we'll kind of dive into more details about that. But the other 2 states are California and Virginia.
Right. And so for those vacant positions, with the governor having the authority to be able to fill those roles or positions, at any point can the city or the citizens say and try to what's the word? Not veto, but if they're not for that person, do they have any right, or is it just fully the governor's choice?
It's in the law, so it's hard to go against that. If we had laws that amended what's in place now, I think we'll have more of a say so. But it truly is up to the governor. If there's any of these judge seats that are not filled, if someone retires early, God forbid they pass away, something happens, tragic, the governor has the ability to fill that role.
Got you. Okay, so who's on the ballot for this Chief Justice position for this election?
Got it. So one thing I want to note, Precious, you and I talked about this earlier, is that right now there's 9 um, seats, uh,
Right.
and of those seats, there are 3 vacant seats, or three, not one vacant seat, and 2 additional seats that are up for reelection. And I think it's important for people to know this also, is that this into all the judges that sit in their seats um, right now are Republican.
All
So that,
Republican seats.
yeah, yes, the chief presiding the position that we're talking about right now is also Republican. He's an incumbent, and the person that's going up against him, Amy Clark Meacham, she's a Democrat. Didn't say much about her. Outside of she's been a judge for 9 years. She didn't complete the survey. She's a district court judge right now. There's also another guy that's running on here, Mark Ash. He's part of the Libertarian Party. Some things that we noted about him is that he is all about defunding the police and implementing policies that hold police more accountable. And he has a Facebook page that kind of talks about this as well. The incumbent has been doing this a long time. As we know, this is Texas, uh,
Right.
very much kind of stubborn, and we're set in our ways in the way people have continued to vote. But he's been a judge since 1988, and this is his 6th run in
Wow.
in his current role.
And I actually went to his website. I was trying to just see what were some of his wins or biggest accomplishments, but it's not really organized or listed. I think it's that type of position where you've had it for so long, and so you feel like you don't have to put in as much effort to really promote, or build awareness or get community buy-in. So yeah, that's I'm just gonna keep it right there.
A lot of this is name recognition. It's
Yeah,
party affiliation. It's a lot of networking. Um, but just think about, he's been in that role since 1988. It's a long time, and
right.
um, we've seen some things change, but not a lot. One thing to note: he was fined by the Ethics Committee in 2008 for illegal use of campaign funds. 29
Oh,
thousand.
really?
Yes, and it was about $29,000. You guys can look this up. This is all public information. This did go to the court's trial, and the fine ended up being reduced to, I think, $1,000. But this is the law. These folks enforce the law, so I'm sure they know how to get around it. With all things being considered. Uh,
Right.
but you guys can look up more information on it. But he has had a couple of legal issues while he was in that seat. That's one thing to note. But I won't go in on him. But you guys can look this stuff up on his website. This is public
Yes.
information.
So next up, we have the Texas Supreme Court, which is they are the final arbiters of the law, the guardians and interpreters of the law and the Constitution. So they are determined by whether the court decides to grant a review of a judgment. This court has mandatory jurisdiction over writs of mandamus and habeas corpus. You guys familiar with these terms? Feel like I'm on Legally Blonde, but we're going to continue. So, Dave, actually, if you can break down exactly what I just said, because we like to research and we want to give y'all exactly what the book says, but we need y'all to understand it. So, with the Texas Supreme Court, okay, they're the final arbiters of the law, but what's like a case or some a popular case where we can be able to relate to, just as citizens, of how they use their power?
So we have here, we just seen in Texas alone, where the Texas Supreme Court has shot down the idea of the mail-in ballots, like where we have these different locations where people can drop off their mail-in ballots. Where Harris County, we're the third largest city in the country, one of the third largest, and we've been reduced to one mail-in ballot drop-off location for early voters. So it was 11 at first, and comparing this to Los Angeles, which is the number one city in the country, they have over 300 drop off locations.
Wow.
We've been reduced to one. Let that sink in. I mean, let that sink in.
Yeah, I am. I'm sitting here. Okay, so who's on the ballot for this role? Please tell us. Let's just jump there. Like who's on the ballot here?
And I'm laughing to keep from being just irate because this is absurd. So that's why it's important. No matter what party you affiliate with, voting is a civil liberty, and voting is something that everybody should have the right and the opportunity to do. Voting should be a national holiday, if you ask me, because it's so important. And for they're using the law as a reason why mail-in voting is something that they're not supporting. And so these things happen all the time. People do mail-in votes and all the time. This is not new, but they're acting like this is something new. But anyways, so there's 3 seats up for re-election. Seat number 5 is currently vacant. That judge actually retired this year, so that will be appointed by the governor. But all seats 7 and 8 are open. And again, I want to point out that this is mostly white males, all Republicans that currently sit in these seats. I do want to highlight a couple of candidates on the ballot. There's a Stacey Williams. She's running for District Court 7. Uh, excuse me, Supreme Court 7. She's a black female. She's currently a district judge. She's out of Dallas. She's been in her seat for 6 years. Her website has been updated. And it's a good idea to go in there and see who's endorsing her as well. And just kind of take a look at her, but what she stands for. She's running her platform also on criminal justice reform. She's got a lot of really, really good information on her website. And we always like to highlight candidates that are not your typical candidate. As we mentioned earlier, most of these people that sit in these seats are white males. I think there's only a couple of white females that sit in these seats, but all of them are white
Yeah.
and they're all Republican.
And I looked into her running mate. I think his name is Jeff Boyd. And in the primaries, he got 100% of the Republican vote. And Stacey, I want to say it was about 1.7 million Republicans that voted, and it was about I want to say 1,750,000 Democrats voted in total. And so it's very thin line right now because I think Stacey got a little over 1 million of those votes. So she won the primary election against her Democratic running mate by about 60%. But if we look at the total votes on both parties, it's a thin line. So the Democrats would definitely have to show up to if for her to get that seat because
And
I
I
think
think,
we've
yeah,
had that pattern for far too long.
yeah, and I think it's diversity is good. Like
Right.
we most of the people that are coming in and out of these courts look like you and I. Most of
Mhm.
these people that are having cases and things like that go before these judges look like you and I. And I think it's important to have not just diversity but also inclusion. And so that's really what voting is about is including people in these different processes that we have at the country.
Agreed. Okay. So lastly, we have the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals. So yeah, this is a mouthful. So I'm gonna let you take this one, Dave.
Yeah, so this is just another layer that we've added to our court systems in this state. So it's been around a long time. It was founded in 1876. Um, it's the state's court of last resort for criminal matters. So where you have the Supreme Court, and then you also now you have the criminal courts of appeals, which handles the criminal cases.
So
And
would it go to the Supreme Court first?
no,
No.
they so I'll just kind of explain it further. So this is a court where it exercises discretionary review over criminal cases. So if there is any reasonable doubt, if you feel like your case wasn't tried fairly, if you feel like you had a mistrial, or if the lower courts won't even take your case, and you
Mm,
feel like you have a case that you want to bring forth, a criminal case, the criminal courts appeals will hear your case. They'll choose to review it or not to review it. The only cases that the court must hear are those that are involved in capital punishment and other cases involving liberty issues, like capital punishment. So death penalty is
mhm.
one of those cases where they have to hear those as well.
Okay. So once again, here all seats are Republican judges. Um, as of 2019. In 2018, the court decided on 6,231 cases. So going back to your comment about the people that are coming out of these courts look just like you and I can only imagine what were the verdicts of this 6,000 plus cases. And also knowing, and which I didn't know, that all death penalty cases are automatically directed to the Criminal Court of Appeals after trial. Did not know that. And so, who do we have on the ballot for this role?
So we have a couple of people that we want to point out.
Oh,
A
there's some people up for re-election. I missed that, but you can go ahead.
Yeah, so you got people up for re-election in their seats. Like people don't want to give up these seats. Obviously, these are powerful roles. I do want to point out two new females that are looking to gain some seats in this. The first one is Elizabeth Davis Frizzell. She is a Democrat. She's running for Court 3. She's a Black woman. She served as district judge for over 20 years. She's also running a platform on criminal justice reform, and her website, really good, thorough website where she talks about unfair sentences being um, something that impacts the Black community more than any other community, and wanting to implement some things that would reform that, which I think is phenomenal. Her website has been updated. You guys can look at her. And also, there's a Tina Yo Clinton. She's also a Democrat. She's an Asian woman who
I
also,
was just about to say, Tina. I've never, I've, it's rare that I see an Asian woman named Tina, but hey, Tina.
I love her name. It's Tina Yo. Tina Yo
Right.
Clinton. Maybe that's, I don't know if that's her.
Married name,
Yeah,
probably.
yeah. But Tina Yo is dope. I love that name. I'll never forget that. Like when I look at the ballot, I will remember Tina Yo.
Right.
Uh, she did complete the survey, like out of all the judges, and the surveys are very thorough. They give you a lot of information on how the candidate thinks, what they value, sort of what they will run their platform on. And these seats are pivotal in us reforming our system. I can't say enough about how important criminal justice reform is in addressing issues that plague the Black community, in addressing
Right.
racism, in addressing all these things that continue to set us back as a society and prevent us from being a safe society. And so these roles are key in a lot of decisions, even our rights as citizens. Like you guys just saw, we mentioned earlier how the Supreme Court shot down the idea of us having these places to drop off our mail-in ballots and reduce it to one for a city that has over 4 million residents. And that's
Right.
absurd. So it's super important, Precious, for us to keep knocking these
Yes.
things out and addressing it.
And the survey he's referring to is what's on Ballotpedia. So Ballotpedia has a survey that they send out to all candidates to be able to build out their profile. And it's an optional survey. Some people fill it out, some people don't. But we definitely applaud the candidates that do, because that shows a lot in wanting us to know what their values are, what the core issues they're wanting to really be behind and really support within the community. So, man, we're like weeks away, more like days away from voting.
Yeah.
Like, and so, so yeah, please definitely do your due diligence. We're just here to give you a few highlights, some of our initial research. but just to really understand who's in these seats, because you should be able to ask them questions. If you want to message them on Facebook, get your questions answered, because this really will dictate the future and in the decisions that we're making. And so, yeah, we just we gotta take it serious, because it is like we see the state of our country right now. And so, granted, I know we're really hoping that, everything plays out and as God intends for the presidential election, but even more so, that direct impact is on the local level. And so we want to know who's in these seats and who's in these positions.
Absolutely. And Precious, just before we get out of here and wrap up, just to remind people for Harris County, if you're in Harris County, next Tuesday, which is the 13th, is early voting starts.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes all the way through Sunday the 18th, and then on repeat that Monday. But the polls are open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. 7 days a week. I think Sundays it's 12 p.m. to 7 p.m. Yeah, that's right. So every day but Sunday at 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. at the polls. We recommend you go early. We recommend you get your voting done early. There's going to be a lot of people out voting. I just read an article on Friday that showed in Harris County alone, we've had 200,000 more people registered to vote during this election cycle than we had in our last election cycle.
Wow.
Which is phenomenal. So the goal now is not only for people to go out and vote, but to be educated on who you're voting for. Also, keep in mind, this is not a straight ticket ballot. So you will have every candidate from Libertarian to the Green Party, Republican, Democrat, everybody's on the same ticket. And I just looked today, and there's about 7 candidates for president that you can choose from on there from all the different parties. So it's all on one ticket, which I think is in a if I'm being honest about it, I think that's fair. I think that makes sense. I think that takes away from us doing a straight ticket, especially those of us that don't identify with. There's things that people can identify with specific parties. Some identify with all of them with different things and different candidates they want to vote for. But it's important to be informed, because there are a lot of important positions on the ballot and a lot of things that should be important to all of us, such as women's rights, human rights, civil rights. There's so many different things that are at risk and at stake with this election. So again, we're Community Action Collective, CAC Houston. You guys that's our handle on Instagram, handle on Twitter as well. So CAC Houston, and on Facebook it's spelled out Community Action Collective. Again, that's who we are, and that's why we're bringing this stuff to you. And our whole goal is that we can impact one person, 2 people by this information. We've done our job.
Yes, so please share this content all month. We really want to be able to get this information out so people can feel more well informed when they're at the voting poll. So we appreciate you guys for